In 1928, a woman walked into a New York design house and signed a contract worth $50,000 for just 1 year. She is not an heiress. She did not marry into money. She drew her way to that desk. And in today's money, the name she just signed is worth close to $1 million. That mattered because in 1928, half of all American families lived on $2,000 a year or less. Her one signature was worth 25 of those whole households stacked together. One woman, in a field most people today assume women were barely let near. By the end of this, you'll know which 1928 jobs paid women more than most people earn now, why one of them out-earned the average doctor, and the single profession that broke every rule about what a woman's work was worth. None of this is a guess. Every number comes from 1928 itself, beside the jobs women actually held. This is the part most people get wrong. Picture a working woman in the 1920s, and you probably see a secretary at a typewriter, scraping by until a wedding rescued her. Some of that holds up. A file clerk earned $10 to $25 a week, a stenographer $12. But other women cleared more in 1 year than 4 families combined. Both were happening at once. We just kept the small story and lost the big one. To feel why these numbers land, you have to know what a dollar did in 1928. Bread ran about 9 cents a loaf. A city family paid around $30 a month in rent. The famous cheap car, the Ford, cost a few $100s, not a few thousand. One 1928 dollar is worth a little over $19 in our money today. So, whenever I hand you a 1928 salary, multiply it by roughly 19.5 and watch what it becomes. Take the interior decorator. By 1928, the field was already crowded with women drawn to what many call the paradise for a working woman. A young interior decorator made $25 to $150 a week. The experienced ones, running the big decorating departments, could reach $10,000 a year. That is near $195,000 today, for choosing the furniture, rugs, and color schemes in rich people's homes. Only a handful of stores had departments large enough to pay it, but the women who got there lived very well. The cook is the one that surprises everybody. And this does not mean a servant in a private home. Picture a chef running the kitchen of a great hotel or club, an honored position that called for knowing the chemistry of cooking and the foods of other countries. The most famous of these women were said to pull $10,000 a year. Same ceiling as the top decorator, near $195,000 today, for a woman running a hotel kitchen, while assistants below her did the hard labor. We file cooking under low-paid work without thinking. The very top of it paid like a profession. Editors did well too. An assistant editor started near $40 a week. A full magazine editor could reach $10,000 a year, because a woman's eye on the page was worth money. Now it gets steeper. The store buyer decided what an entire department would carry, and the executive buyers running the big departments pulled $15,000 to $20,000 a year, near $390,000 today. Above even them sat the merchandise expert, the woman buyers came to for a verdict on what the public would want next season. Her pay ran from $5,000 to $20,000, the bottom already near $100,000 now. And women were not resented in those chairs, because they had been buying for stores for years and had earned them. The stores were not the only place. A publicity agent getting a company's name into the papers could make $500 a week, close to $500,000 today. In advertising, the account experts pulled $200 a week, and even the copywriters made $25 to $100. This was not one freak job. It was a whole hidden layer of well-paid work almost nobody remembers now. Now let me break the pattern. Everything so far has been a salary, a steady check. The richest figure per hour belongs to something stranger. An astrologer in New York charged $25 for a single horoscope reading that took about half an hour. That is close to $490 today, for 30 minutes of talking about the stars, and her waiting list ran so long you could not get an appointment sooner than 30 days out. Believe in it or don't. The point is that these numbers keep refusing to behave the way we expect. Which brings us back to the woman at the desk, the designer. A beginner started at $35 a week, ordinary money. Famous designers shaping the dresses and fabrics everyone copied were reputed to command $50,000 a year, the biggest figure. The biggest of them spent half the year abroad, expenses paid, scouting the ideas everyone else would copy. That is the figure she signed for in the opening. Do that math, and it lands just under $1 million today. More than the average woman doctor, who topped out near $10,000 inside an institution. More than 8 times the best-paid head librarian in the country, who reached $6,000. A grade school teacher made $75 to $250 a month, $3,000 a year at the very top. So the famous designer made roughly 16 times what a respected teacher did. More than 20 times what a typical worker takes home now. And the verdict at the time was almost a shrug. Plenty of capable men did this work, and the women held their own among them without a single apology. I owe you some honesty here. These are ranges, not a payroll printout. That $50,000 was what the famous designers were reputed to command. Reputed. We do not actually know how many women reached that top rung, and I won't pretend we do. It could have been a few dozen in the whole country. Pay swung wildly from one region to another, so read these as rough, not exact. Treat that near $1 million number as the ceiling of what was possible, not the going rate. The ceiling is the surprising part. And this is where it turns, because the same era that produced these fortunes carried the catch right alongside them. Women were expected to work for less than men. They were often hired precisely because they came cheaper, and the pay for the very same work was lower for a woman. The thinking of the day brushed it off in one phrase: it will be adjusted in time. Stop and feel how strange that is. A woman could draw dresses for close to $1 million a year in today's money, and the same world pointing her there took it for granted that the man at the next desk would be paid more for identical work. That is the thing the salary alone can never tell you. These women were climbing a ladder somebody had quietly sawed a few rungs out of, and they climbed it anyway, high enough that we are still startled by where some of them ended up. The money is the hook, but what stays with you is that they rose in a world that called them worth less. So I have one question for you, and I read every reply. Before you watched this, if you had to bet on which single 1928 job paid a woman the most, what would you have said? Drop the job you assumed in the comments, and let's see how many of us guessed wrong together. And if you want more of these, the real numbers that history somehow forgot, tell me in the comments. That is what keeps me digging them up for you. Because the next one is almost too good. In 1928, in Philadelphia, a taxi company opened with one rule that stopped people cold on the sidewalk. Every last driver was a woman, in a sharp tailored uniform, behind the wheel of a cab. Who they were, what they earned, and the surprising reason they said the job was safer than anyone expected. That is where we are headed next. History remembers what the rest of us forgot. I'll see you in the next one.